The house on Saratoga Trail stood quiet under the Colorado sun, its beige exterior blending seamlessly with the suburban sprawl of Frederick. To anyone passing by, it was just another family home. Manicured lawn, a tricycle tipped over in the driveway, a basketball hoop bolted above the garage. Inside, though, the air was heavy with secrets, the kind that festered in silence, unnoticed until they shattered everything. Lila Bennett, a neighbor 2 doors down, had always envied the Watts family, not in a malicious way, but with the quiet longing of someone whose own life felt a little too ordinary. She watched Shanann Watts post on social media, smiling selfies with her daughters, Bella and Celeste, or glowing pregnancy announcements about their 3rd child, a boy they'd named Nico. Shanann's energy was infectious, her optimism a beacon in their cul-de-sac. Chris, her husband, seemed the perfect counterpart. Quiet, steady, always ready with a grin as he chased the girls around the yard. Lila would sip her coffee on her porch, scrolling through Shanann's updates, and think they've got it all figured out. But that summer, something shifted. Lila noticed at first in small things. Shanann's posts grew less frequent, her captions shorter, less vibrant. Chris, who used to wave as he jogged by, started keeping his head down, earbuds in, lost in his own world. Lila chalked it up to the stress of a new baby on the way, or maybe the long hours Chris worked at the oil fields. Life, she knew, could strain even the happiest families. One August morning, Lila was watering her petunias when she saw Shanann's friend, Nicole, pull up to the Watts house in a hurry. Nicole's face was tight with worry. Her phone pressed to her ear as she knocked on the door. No answer. Lila set down her watering can and wandered over. Curiosity piqued. "Everything okay?" Lila asked, wiping her hands on her jeans. Nicole shook her head, her voice low. "Shanann's not answering her phone. She was supposed to meet me this morning, but she didn't show. Her car's here, but something's wrong." Lila glanced at the house. The blinds were drawn, the tricycle still in the driveway. A chill ran through her, though the sun blazed overhead. Maybe she's just resting, with the pregnancy and all. Nicole didn't reply. She was already dialing another number, her fingers trembling. Within an hour, a police car rolled up, and Lila watched from her porch as officers spoke with Nicole and a neighbor, Nate, who'd offered a security camera footage. The neighborhood buzzed with unease, whispers passing from one front yard to another. By evening, the news van arrived, and Shanann, Bella, and Celeste were officially reported missing. Lila couldn't sleep that night. She kept thinking of Shanann's last post, a blurry photo of Bella and Celeste giggling in a splash pad, caption, "My heart is full." How could they just vanish? She replayed every interaction she'd had with the family, searching for clues. Chris had been on the news, his voice shaking as he pleaded for their return, but something about his eyes, flat, distant, gnawed at her. Days later, the truth unraveled like a nightmare. Chris confessed to the unthinkable. He'd killed Shanann, Bella, and Celeste. The details were too horrific for Lila to process. She sat on her couch, staring at the TV as reporters recounted how Chris had hidden his family's bodies at a remote oil site, his daughter submerged in crude oil, Shanann in a shallow grave. The man who'd once helped Lila jumpstart her car was a monster. The neighborhood changed after that. The Watts house sat empty, a silent scar on the street. Lila couldn't look at it without feeling sick. She stopped watering her petunias, let her own social media go dormant. The questions haunted her. How had no one seen it coming? How had Chris hidden such darkness behind his easy smile? She started attending a support group for neighbors, a place to process the grief and guilt. There, she met others who'd known the Watts family, each carrying their own fragments of the story. Nate, the neighbor with the security camera, spoke quietly about the footage he'd turned over to police. A grainy video of Chris loading something into his truck in the dead of night. "I thought he was just taking out the trash," Nate said, his voice hollow. "I should have looked closer." Lila learned more about Chris's double life. The affair with co-worker, the lies he'd spun to Shanann, the calculated way he planned to erase his family for a fresh start. She read the 2,000-page discovery document released by the district attorney, poring over texts between Shanann and Chris, where Shanann begged him to fight for their marriage. Lila's heart broke for Shanann, who'd sensed something was wrong, but never imagined the betrayal that awaited. One evening, Lila drove to the oil field where the bodies had been found. She didn't know why, maybe to feel closer to the truth or to confront the horror head-on. The site was desolate, the air thick with the smell of crude. She stood by the chain-link fence, staring at the tanks that had held Bella and Celeste. The wind carried a low moan, and Lila shivered, imagining the girls' final moments. She whispered their names, Bella, Celeste, Nico, hoping somehow they'd hear. Back home, Lila started writing, not for publication, but for herself, to make sense of the senseless. She wrote about Shanann's strength, her love for her daughters, the life she built despite the darkness closing in. She wrote about Bella and Celeste, their laughter echoing in her memory, and about Nico, who never got a chance to live. She wrote about Chris, too, not to humanize him, but to understand how someone could fall so far from grace. Her words became a tribute, a way to keep the victim's light alive. She shared her writing with the support group, and soon others added their own stories. Memories of Shanann's kindness, Bella's shy wave, Celeste's fearless energy. They weren't just victims. They were a family who'd filled the world with love, however briefly. Lila's final entry was about forgiveness, not for Chris, but for herself and her neighbors for not seeing the signs. She wrote about the power of community, how they'd come together to honor Shanann and her children, to ensure their names were never forgotten. As she typed the last sentence, tears blurred her vision, but she felt a weight lift. The story wasn't over. It never would be, but in writing it, she'd found a way to carry the light forward, even in the shadow of such darkness.